In our final lab, we're going to enhance our Roo Academy site by adding a pure CSS button and utilizing CSS sprites. So let's take a look at what we're going to be building. All right, so the first thing that you're going to be doing is working on a button. And here I am on the information request form. This is the page you're going to be working on. Down at the bottom, we have a submit button, and I want you to style that any way that you want to make a pure CSS button out of that. I'll go into the particulars in just a moment. And then the next thing you're going to be doing is we have this little section over here that says Connect with Us that has some of the social media icons on it. If you hover over those, you can see that they have a hover state on them as well. And those are all one single image. So they're a sprite image that you can work with. So we're going to be using CSS sprites and CSS-only buttons in this particular lab. Now, I'm going to switch over to my code editor, and we're going to go to the steps in just a moment, but I wanted to show you in the assets directory of the 06_07 file, I have those sprites that I was showing you a second ago. I have the Illustrator file in there, and if you don't have Illustrator, I also have the PDF file. So if you want to open those up and take a closer look at how those are created and how they're spaced, you can go ahead and do that as well. All right, so the file you're going to be working on is in the 06_07 directory. It's under admissions, and it's the request.htm. You're also going to want to open up the main.css file, which is found in the _CSS directory. So here I am in the main.css file, and here are our lab instructions. And let's just go through the steps. Step number 1, using what you learned earlier in the chapter, I want you to create a CSS button for the form submit button of the request.htm page, the one we were just looking at. You've got 2 existing selectors that you're going to use to do this. Both of them are this input type select. There's a default select, and then there's a hover one as well that you're going to use to target that button. I'm not going to give you any direction. I want you to use your own creativity, use effects like gradients, box shadows, borders, all the stuff that we've been learning up till now. And even if you want to experiment with others like text shadow, go ahead. There are 2 resources I'm going to point you to help you with this. The gradient generator that we used earlier, here's a link to that. And there's also a resource called CSS3 Generator. You can copy and paste that link into your browser right there. And with that one, if you want to do things like box shadow, it gives you a nice visual way to do that, and then you can copy and paste the code as well. So that's 2 really great tools. All right, so the selectors that you're going to be targeting, I'm going to have to scroll all the way down to around line 766 or so. There they are. So we've got 2 empty selectors right here that are going to target that button for you. There's the submit and there's the hover. So you want to create states for both of those on the buttons. All right, the next thing I want you to do is in the request file, locate the connect section, which is around line 173. And I want you to study the structure of that section. So if I go back in the source code and I scroll down to about line 173 or so, here's the section of class connect info. And I'm really interested in having you study this unordered list, this menu right here. It's got the 4 links, which go to the Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So they're just regular links. What you're going to do is you're going to take the selectors that target those, and you're going to use CSS sprites in place of the text. Now, if I go back over to the main.css, here are the instructions for that. So you're going to find the connect LIA selector. That's going to target any link inside of a list item, which is also inside that connect section. So it's very specific. It's about line 453 in our CSS. Now, you're going to use that as a starting point. You're also going to write selectors. So you're not going to use that selector. You're going to write new selectors that apply this social_sprites PNG file. And you can find that in the _images directory. So make sure the path is a relative path from here, which is the CSS directory, to here, which is the images directory. Okay. So you want to use that file. Now, all of the icons are 45 pixels by 45 pixels, and they go in a specific order: Twitter, Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to open this up in Illustrator for you. So each of these are 45 pixels by 45 pixels, and they go in order. So we have Twitter, Google, Facebook, and then LinkedIn. And then the hover states for those are below it. Now remember, if you want to go down, you use negative Y values. If you want to go to the right, you use negative X values. So that's very important when you're positioning those sprites. And again, I give you a little bit of direction in that regards. There's no space between them. So the first icon is going to be at 0, 0. The second one is going to be 45 and 0. But remember, you have to use negative values to move to the right. So keep that in mind. Now, after you've created the selectors that are going to display each icon, you then also need to create a hover selector for each one that's going to show the hover state. Remember, the hover icons are directly below the first set of icons. Okay, so they're using the same X coordinates, but the Y coordinate's going to be 45 pixels down. And I just gave you a reminder that those files are over here in the assets folder if you want to take a closer look at them. Okay, so that's it. Indeed, you are now on your own. But But, have fun. Have a great time building your button. Use it as an exercise in creativity and really experiment with combining different properties together. See what you can build. Also, when you're working with your sprites, don't forget to pay attention to whether you need to use positive or negative values when positioning them. Usually, if I'm trying to position a sprite and it doesn't show up, it's typically because I've used either the positive or the negative value when I needed to use the other one. When you're done, be sure to watch the Solutions movie where we'll go over my finished files.